been a few months since Street Fighter 6's release, and I still see questions and surprise comments about many of the mechanics in the game. So in this video, I'm going to break down 6 mechanics that you might not know about at this point in Street Fighter 6 lifespan. These are either things that I have discovered recently myself and have observed from other top players, or things that I just see in my comment section where people are frequently surprised by the existence of these mechanics. So let's go ahead and break down 6 mechanics that you might not know about Street Fighter 6. The first mechanic I want to break down is probably the one I see the most surprise comments about in my comment section on a video whenever this happens to come up. And I'll go ahead and show you what exactly I'm talking about right here. What just happened? Jury's in burnout. I did a drive impact. It's supposed to stun, but instead you see on the right side of the screen there, that blue outline text where it says lock. What is a lock? Quite simply, a lock is what happens when you have a true block string into a drive impact. The developers had some foresight and they decided to create this mechanic to prevent really grimy unblockables. I mean, think about it. With JP, I could do something just like this, right? And that would be an unblockable setup that's covered, but instead it's a lock because they're in block stun. The idea with drive impact is that there should always be a gap in the block string where they have a chance to counterattack. So if they're not in burnout, drive rush stand fierce is actually not a true block string. There is a gap there. If I turn drive impact here on, they're able to squeeze out the drive impact in time, right? There's a fair shot for you to actually counter it based on your resources. When they're in burnout, however, burnout adds 4 more frames of block stun, so this becomes a true block string because there's so much extra block stun from the burnout. However, another option when they're in burnout, drive rush stand medium kick is really strong and leaves a gap. And you see there I get the stun. So why is this so good? Because it's such a tight string, but still has a gap, you'll see that it actually beats pressing jab right there, doesn't work, and beats normal throw. And if they try to forward jump out of this situation, like so, it also beats that. So it pretty much beats every option, and they don't have drive meter to drive impact in return. However, there is still a gap, so if they have instead 1 bar super or a couple bars of super meter, they can still do a level 1, level 3, level 2, whatever they so choose, in the gap to punish you for going for the drive impact. So there's always a tension with when the drive impact will work. There's always a chance for a drive impact that's going to actually cause a wall splat or a stun. You could always try to counterattack. Of course, if you're in this situation, no meter and no drive meter, and they set up one of these strings, it's pretty much checkmate, right? You can create these scenarios where it's actually checkmate once you pin them down with that blocked move. They can't jump out of this once they block the medium kick. They can't jab. They can't throw. In this situation, it's actually checkmate. So that means if you ever get hit by drive impact and you had super meter, you actually did have a chance to get the counter super to punish them. So always keep that in mind on defense. And on offense, learn your strings. Learn how you can actually structure your drive impacts. If it's not in burnout, you can do that. You can actually use drive stand fierce into the DI and it'll cause a crumple, right? If they're not in burnout. This is a pretty tight string, good to use when they're not in burnout. When they are in burnout though, this will cause a lock. You're gonna waste your drive meter and not really get any advantage from it. So instead you gotta use a different option like stand MK with JP. So know these strings with your character on offense so you can have the most optimal strings into DI to prevent a lock. And also know on defense that there has to be a gap when a DI lands. So you always have a shot if you have super meter to counter a DI even when you're in burnout. The next mechanic you might not know about is what I call perfect drive rush. So if you're doing a drive rush in neutral, most people perform their drive rush as so. They press parry and then they dash, and then that's how they approach a neutral and use their surprise high-low mix-up or get their mobility going on with that kind of drive rush. But I want you to notice something if I input drive rush in this fashion. If you see the frame counter in the bottom of the screen, that purple is actually my parry frames, and then the blue would be recovery right there. So whenever I go into drive rush, you see the purple is the parry startup, and then the green is the actual green frames where I'm moving with the drive rush. And you see at best, I'm getting like 4 frames right there, 4, 8, 5, 6. No matter how hard I try, I'm spending a few frames when I go to drive rush actually in my parry. So I'm not drive rushing on frame 1 whenever I actually input this sequence. I'm actually spending a little bit of time in parry. And this has more consequences because pay attention to the drive meter in this situation. Notice how when I do that drive rush like that, I'm actually not having a full bar there at the end. See how it shows a not fully lit green that's pulsating right there? I'm actually using 1 bar drive meter plus a tiny sliver extra to perform this drive rush. So it's not frame perfect in terms of how fast I move, and also it costs a little bit more than 1 bar meter. However, there is a way to do a frame perfect drive rush, which is faster and uses less meter. And that's done by just simply inputting dash and parry at the same time. There you go. That's a perfect drive rush right there. There's 3 frames of parry, the 3 purple frames right there, that I immediately go into the drive rush. That is as fast as you're going to get your drive rush to come out. I think you can get it down to 2 if you're like a machine, but 3 is usually what I get, which means your drive rush is up to, 1 to 4 frames faster from neutral than if you were to press parry first. See right there, I got 7 frames, 6 frames. When you do it by pressing parry first, your drive rush is a lot slower and flashes blue first. When you do it from the forward plus parry, you actually cut away a lot of those parry frames. You flash blue for less time, and it's a lot more sneaky. So the input is forward plus parry. So if you do it perfectly, it might look something like that. There you go. That's a perfect input right there. Forward plus parry. Instead of holding parry first, then forward. Your drive rush comes out faster, and pay attention to the drive meter. Notice how that last bar after the one I use is pulsating green. I actually use a tiny bit less meter in this instance. And this has real match implications because you want to preserve your meter as much as possible, of course, right? So you see with the drive meter here, it's refilling. If I go for a traditional drive rush right as I get that 1 bar drive meter, I'm going to end up using 1 bar plus a tiny sliver and end up putting myself in burnout. Right there. So you see with that example, if you slow down the actual drive meter, you see that I built just over a bar drive meter before I went to drive rush, but because I did parry first, then canceled the drive rush, you actually waste a little bit of time with your parry animation draining your drive meter, and that actually makes you use a little bit more than a bar, preventing you from having meter to do extensions and also putting yourself in burnout. However, in a similar scenario, if I instead go for a perfect drive rush, I'll keep that sliver of drive meter. So you see in this example, I didn't go into burnout. And this is also very important because remember, to do extensions with your drive meter, you don't have to have the full cost of the drive meter available. You just have to have any drive meter available. So if you have 1 sliver of drive meter, you can turn this approach, your drive rush low into a combo from something like 2,260 damage. And you can turn that instead into this, which does, like almost 1,000 more damage. So you can either prevent yourself from going to burnout or have a little bit of extra resources, that sliver of drive meter available to then extend your combo and do a lot more damage. So perfect drive rush is not only faster, so people are less likely to react to your drive rush, it conserves your meter and is super situationally important to prevent yourself from going to burnout or having more resources available to extend your offense and potentially put your opponent in a checkmate situation. This next mechanic you might understand intuitively, but might not understand the full ramifications of how it can actually be applied. I really didn't understand this either until Nemo put out a very informative video about it, and we'll go ahead and link that in the description. But essentially, it's about parry and its recovery. So if I tap parry here, you can see on the drive meter or the meter display down there, the first 8 frames is when my parry is actually active, with the purple frames there, and then the blue is the recovery from the parry. This recovery is pretty interesting because it's a recovery where you can't do any offensive actions. Like if I start pressing buttons during it, I'm locked out from doing any actual attack moves, but I can cancel this into a block, for example. However, we understand that there's a recovery here. So for example, I'm going to have the dummy here, press parry, just tap it, and then, start blocking. We kind of intuitively understand this mechanic at this point because you know for a fact that if someone whiffs a parry, you can go for a throw. They're unable to detect this throw because they're stuck in that blue recovery window that I demonstrated here. However, if you keep taking this to its extreme, you also have to remember that when you parry, it blocks both highs and lows for you. If you are doing a parry and you tap it, you're locked out from that high-low protection. So in this dummy example, the dummy is tapping parry then holding down back. If they go for this parry and they just tap it, and then I do an overhead right after, you see there it gives me a punish counter overhead. So if you tap parry and then you wonder why are you getting opened up after, like why is it not canceling into a block, you actually have to block high-low. So if I go for a low here after they whiff the parry, they're going to block it just fine because they're canceling it into their actual block input. But the high, they're not protected from. They actually have to hold back to block the high, not down back. Conversely, same idea, if they tap parry then start holding back instead, they'll block the overhead just fine. But if they go instead for a low, they'll eat the low because they're being punished for their parry recovery. You actually have to pay attention to your block after you tap parry. And then this is where Nemo comes in with an amazing example. He takes this to the logical extreme. In this recording, I'm going to have Jury do parry and then mash drive impact. So think about it. You're locked out of doing any actions besides block during this recovery, which means you can't press drive impact, which then means that you can't counter the drive impact. Yeah, in these examples, you see the dummy is clearly mashing drive impact, but they're unable to get the counter DI out in time simply because they're locked out of countering a DI in the recovery of a parry. So in the high level meta, with this example, I'm gonna have this recording being activated on block, and with just a delay of 3 frames, in this situation, it's pretty common for people to try to parry JP's fireballs from Stand Fierce, especially in the corner, right? So the dummy here is going to go for the slight delay parry, get the perfect parry out in time. However, I can do a feint here and, you know, bait out the whiffed parry right there. And take this to the extreme, I can do a guaranteed drive impact in this scenario. So if you react to this scenario a little bit late and I just commit to the string, you get crushed. Your whiffed parry, your tap parry, actually gets crushed and gives me a full combo. So there is risk to whiffing a parry in this game. And if you're wondering, like, why am I getting punish counter when I parry? Or like, why can't I defend properly when I parry? When you're in that recovery, all you can do is cancel to a block. You need to react high-low to their mix-ups from that point. If you get thrown out of the parry, that's a punish counter. And there are situations where potentially you're not gonna get your DI out. It's pretty rare, it's a very tight window, but that is definitely something to keep in mind about parry in this game. Mechanic number 4 you might not know about is hold buffering move. So there's a lot of states in this game where you can actually hold the button that you want to activate during the after the recovery of a certain state, and it will actually activate after that state concludes. Easy example is, of course, drive rush. When you do a drive rush, if you want your button to come out as fast as possible after the drive rush, you don't have to actually tap the button and time it. You can instead activate the drive rush and then immediately start holding the button you want to do. So in this example, I'm going to do drive rush crouching medium kick, and I can actually hold the crouching medium kick very early and it'll come out on the very first possible frame. This is also really good for things like drive rush jab. If you want to stop your momentum as fast as possible, you know, we saw Angry Bird using drive rush jab like crazy at Evo. Super strong way to approach and then suddenly stop your momentum like that. So don't tap the button if you want it to happen right away. Just hold it. Just hold it. It'll happen as soon as the window comes up. This also applies to other situations with the drive system as well. You know, same idea with your combos, right? A very common situation where I actually hold the button is if I do an extension from lights into another jab. So the only thing I can combo from this drive rush cancel is stand jab. I find it really easy or beneficial to do drive rush with the new parry macro here, and then I just hold my stand jab as soon as I tap parry. And this essentially ensures that jab is going to connect at the right time. I'm taking advantage of the buffer to help time my combo here, and I don't have to worry about tapping the jab at the right moment. I just hold it, and it'll actually activate as soon as the drive rush completes. And you can do this in other situations, and I think the most common one is from perfect parry. So you finally get a perfect parry on Honda. You don't want to mess up this punish opportunity, right? So if you get that perfect parry, and then you time it manually, there's a chance that you can miss your window. So you might miss it, or you're trying to buffer it into a normal into a super, and then it might make it a little bit more difficult to tap it and then to input your super after. But you can also use the same trick here and just hold the button. You can hold Fierce Punch way before it's time to actually press it, and it'll activate as soon as possible. So if you have frame perfect punishes after perfect parries of certain moves, you don't have to time it because it's a long screen freeze. It can be a little awkward to time. You can just hold the button if that makes it easier for you, and then get your punish that way. This next mechanic I had to learn the hard way, and it's a little bit convoluted. We're going to get a little bit into the weeds with how the frames actually work in this game, but essentially some moves are weaker to DI. Let me show you. So I'm going to set up a string here, and then I'm going to demonstrate trying to counter DI by using different moves that JP has. So I'm going to do standing light kick into standing crouching light punch, and then do a move after and try to DI through it. So the standing light kick will activate the DI, and I'll do crouching light punch and then do my next move. So if I do standing light kick, jab, jab, I can counter DI in time, no problem. Same thing with stand jab, I can still counter DI, no problem. I could even do back medium punch, which is a slower move. It's an 8-frame startup move and counter DI, no problem. So if I'm able to do back medium punch, which is an 8-frame move and still counter DI in time, can I do crouching medium punch, which is a 7-frame move? It's faster and still DI in time? The answer is no. And the secret here lies in the counter hit. So if you look at the inputs, I am definitely inputting DI in time before it makes contact. So if you slow this down, look at the slow-mo footage, I'm inputting DI. It's just not able to come out. And you can confirm why it's not able to come out, because if you look on the right side of the screen here, it says counter hit. If you are counter hit out of your move and you actually see that you press DI in time, there is a special unique thing going on with that move that is preventing you from getting the DI cancel. Crouching medium punch is DI cancelable, right? In a different scenario, I can press crouching medium punch and get the DI to come out. But this move is unique in that it doesn't let you cancel it until later on during the move. You see, when I press this move, you see those 4 red boxes there? That's the active frames of the move. So those are all the frames where it actually has the ability to make contact with the opponent. And this move is unique, and there's a few moves like this in the game, in that I cannot cancel this move until after all 4 active frames complete. So even though it's a 7-frame startup move when this will hit, it actually will not cancel into the next move that you do until 4 more frames later. So you see here, no matter what I do, when I press the next move, those 4 red boxes are always there. No matter how early or late I press the move, those 4 red boxes for crouching medium punch will always be there. It always has to finish those frames before the next move occurs. Back medium punch, even though it's slower, it's 8-frame startup and has 3 red boxes, 3 red active frames, I can cancel right away. See how when I did my DI, instead of showing all 3 red boxes, it's just 1 red box and then it cancels right away to the purple, which is DI, or the green, which is the startup of my swipe. I can also delay the cancel and get all 3 active frames to occur. I have a window. I can even get 2 active frames to occur. There's a window where I can cancel during this active frames, which means that when I go to counter the DI and I press DI right away, it actually cancels right after frame 8. But this move will actually counter right after frame 11. This move is actually weaker to DI and slower because you have to wait for all those active frames to finish. So even though it's a faster move, it's a slower cancel. And you know that this happens to you, like I said, if you see the actual counter hit occur. So my DI input is right there registered, but it gives me the counter hit. That means I didn't press it in time. However, if you see a situation where it says punish counter, that means you messed up, you pressed your DI too late. That's how you can tell what happened here. Punish counter means that you're in the recovery of your move, you just simply didn't react in time and pressing DI in time. I'm pressing DI too late here. My move is in recovery, so I can't cancel it to DI. So if you got counter hit and press DI in time, maybe the move you're using is one of these moves that doesn't allow you to cancel. Examples include JP stand medium kick. You also cannot cancel until after the active frames complete. Cammy crouch medium kick, Chun-Li stand medium punch. There's a bunch of moves in this game that lock you out from canceling until later in the move. So even if they're faster, they might be weaker to DI. So with JP, you don't want to necessarily use crouching medium punch to go through the armor and activate DI. You might want to stick to jabs, or even back medium punch would be preferable in this situation to counter DI instead. All right, mechanic number 6 that you might not know about. In fact, I'm almost certain that a lot of people don't know about this, or at least it's at least not widely used, is a little old defensive mechanic that might be overlooked by the majority of the player base. So drive reversal is actually not a bad mechanic defensively. You just have to know when to use it. You perform it by doing drive impact and forward and drive impact during the block stun of a move. So this is useful in situations like you block here, this charged knuckle, heavy knuckle from Luke. If you end up blocking this in neutral, he's +4, so he gets, good offensive pressure from this. But you can deny him that by exchanging some drive meter and doing a drive reversal to get him off you. You just got to react in time, do forward plus drive reversal, and you're back to neutral. But it does cost 2 meters. So you see in this situation, when I'm only having half my meter, it leaves me with less than 1 bar just to get him off me in neutral at no health cost and no meter cost to the Luke player here. However, there is a certain way where you can help nullify this cost. You can actually parry and then cancel parry into drive reversal. This is something that is so simple, but so overlooked by a lot of people, the fact that you can cancel parry into drive reversal. And this is useful because you see it coming. You know that this heavy knuckle is coming once he starts charging it. You can save a lot of meters. So remember, originally, if I just block this straight up, I'm gonna be close to burnout in this situation with less than a bar left. But if I instead parry it and I end up getting a regular parry, look at that, I save a whole bar of meter because I'm actually regaining meter during the parry of the move itself. Then I spent a little bit of cash to do the drive reversal. So it makes your drive reversal much cheaper. And there's another hidden benefit to that, and that there's a defensive option select built into it. So if I go instead and I end up attempting the perfect parry, I can still input the parry to drive reversal every time. So I'm going to input parry to drive reversal, and if I get the perfect parry, it's not going to come out. So there, I inputted parry to drive reversal, but because I got the perfect parry, the screen freeze prevented it from coming out, and I can get a punish instead. So when you see moves like this, there's no downside to going for it, right? So in that situation, I inputted a parry to drive reversal. In the case I mistime my perfect parry, I'm going to get my meter back and knock Luke away and prevent him from getting offensive pressure. And in the best case scenario, I'll end up getting a perfect parry. And I can get a full combo. And with a character like JP, that full combo can mean a lot of drive meter cost, right? Obviously your mileage may vary. There is no reason to not utilize this. If you're in a situation where you are going to drive reversal someone for using an offensive move, you do this option select essentially, parry to drive reversal. It makes your drive reversal cost less, and in the off chance that you get the perfect parry, it doesn't mess anything up. You still get your full punish like you normally would. So this is an exceptional technique that I need to incorporate into my own gameplay. It makes drive reversal a lot cheaper and can prevent autopilot offense from a lot of players that you go up against. Another key use for parrying to drive reversal is when you parry a drive impact, like in the corner. So if you go for parry on drive impact because you're not ready to react to it and you get parry, you're only +3 in this situation, which is pretty good, but you don't get a punish, right? But you can try to take your turn back there, but they might be nutty and go for a DP or some other kind of strange situation. However, you can also do parry to drive reversal. And you see my drive meter situation here? Like, I'm less than a bar of drive meter. And if I go for counter DI, this could be bad in some situations because occasionally you don't even want to go for this. If they have such a life lead and you have no super meter, you put yourself in burnout to counter the DI. Some people will force you to do this to get rid of your drive meter, and that could be not the best situation. So you might want to attempt a perfect parry on this. But if you miss the perfect parry, look how much meter you get for parrying a drive impact. It's like a bar and a half of drive meter. So if you miss the perfect parry window, you can get your drive meter back, and no matter what, if you have a sliver of drive meter, you're gonna have more than 2 bars so that you can get a drive reversal without going into burnout. So this will always be burnout safe if you land this parry here. And of course, if you end up actually getting the perfect parry, you don't get your drive reversal to come out. You save your meter. So if you're in a meter crunch in the corner and they're going for drive impacts, this is an amazing option select to use because you can defend, build space, and perfect parry to get a punish potentially without putting yourself in burnout. It's the most meter efficient way to defend against drive impact in the corner. No matter which way you slice it, you'll build space and prevent yourself from getting into burnout by either building the meter for the drive reversal or getting the perfect parry and punishing. And there you have it. There are 6 mechanics that you might not have known about in Street Fighter 6. Some of these are more well-known than others. So let me know in the comments if there's anything you learned in this video, and let me know what else you might want to see on this channel. And thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.